Shalom, shalom, as we continue our reading of the destruction of the temple and the breaching of the walls, which is what we begin to commemorate on the 17th of Tammuz. Many events take place during this period of time, which is not such a good mazal for the Jewish people. And we are repeating again the destruction of buildings and of edifices, mainly as a result of our actions. And one of the things that we begin to read, even as we enter into the 17th of Tammuz, which happens to fall the 27th of this month of June, we read the reason why these national fasts of lamentations, of pain, were declared. The prophet Zechariah says in chapter 8, verse 19, this is what God has said: the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month shall become days of joy, of celebration for the household of Yehudah, and they shall be festive occasions. And our sages explain in Ta'anit 26b that the fast of the 4th month refers to the 17th of Tammuz. And since Tammuz is the 4th month of Nisan, our sages say that they taught there were 5 major catastrophes that took place on this date over the generations. At the first set, the major catastrophe took place on the first due to the tablets of the law that were smashed in response to the sin of the golden calf. And during the final siege of Jerusalem, in the first time of the first temple of the first Beit HaMikdash, the people became incapable of bringing the Korban Talmid. The walls of Jerusalem was breached at the time of the second Beit HaMikdash, precipitating its destruction, and apostomos burned the Torah, and the idol was erected in the Beit HaMikdash. Interesting, it took place also during the same period. The Rashi comments on this that in Ta'anit 26b and Yomam 9b, he explained based on the Targum Yerushalmi and on Yeshayahu, Isaiah 66, that by the Macharata Yud he proved that the Targum and Yerushalmi on the books of the prophet exist, but it has became lost. This refers to the idol that was brought into the Beit HaMikdash by Menashe, king of Yehudah, and the Talmud Yerushalmi cites in Ta'anit 4:5 that this is one opinion, and cites the other who claims that it was Apostamos, the wicked, the same individual who burned the Torah, who set up an idol in the Beit HaMikdash. Apostamos is the same individual that's referred to in other literatures as Sofer Zerubbabel. Sages teach also in Ta'anit 26:28b that we find these two events mentioned in the verses of Daniel chapter 12, verse 11. From that time that the Korban Tamid was removed and placed to an abomination and in the abandoned hall. Rashi explained that on this very same day, the Korban Tamid, the whole idea of sacrificing to Hashem, was stopped. It ceased to be offered. The enemy placed an abomination in the abandoned hall, meaning that the idol was set up in the Beit HaMikdash. And accordingly, this was Apostamos who set up this idol, Hadrian in other words. And this was the prophecy about the event that took place during the time of the second Beit HaMikdash. In other words, there is even writings in which it refers to Apostamos as the wicked one, as the man of sin, the man of wickedness, what in the other religion or other religions calls him the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah, the anti-God, the anti-law. He was a person that was against all the laws of Moses. And so he set up an idol in order that he would be worshipped as God, being in the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, sitting as if he was God. Rabbeinu Menachem Hamri wrote in the commentary Ta'anit, page 86, that Apostamos was a Greek noble, and it follows that the ceasing of the offering of the Korban Tamid that took place on the 17th of Tammuz occurred during the time of Apostamos as well. Maran Rishon LeZion pointed out that Talmud Yerushalmi implies that it was forced to cease the offering of the Korban Tamid because the lengthy siege, and not because of any specific decree from the non-Jewish ruler. The Maran also pointed that the Rambam wrote in Hilchot Ta'ayinot that the Korban Tamid ceased to be offered on the 17th of Tammuz, the very time the first Beit Mikdash, and it appears that he understood that the incident of the idol being erected in the Beit Mikdash on the 17th was an incident involving King Manasseh during the time of the first Beit Mikdash. The Maharan questioned this, however, since the prophecy of Daniel is definitely referring to the second Beit Mikdash. He resolved this problem by citing Rabbeinu Menachem HaMe'eri, who explained the verse to mean the Korban Tamid would one day cease to be offered on the anniversary of the occasion when an idol was set up in the Beit HaMikdash. And according to this, the incident of the idol took place during the same time that the first Beit HaMikdash, while the incident of the Korban Tamid took place during the time of the second one. The Rambam in Hilchot 5:3 and Hilchot Melachim, chapter 11, verse 3, wrote that Bar Kokhba was killed, and this is very, very troubling. Listen to this. Bar Kokhba was killed by non-Jews, obviously the Romans, is according to the Rambam. But the Talmud Yerushalmi in Ta'anit 4 and the Midrash Echa Rabbati, chapter 2, verse 2, explains that he killed the aged Rebbe Eliezer HaMa'odi, and it was decreed in heaven that he also be killed. In other words, because Bar Kokhba killed the aged Rebbe Eliezer, that from heaven it became clear that he was to be killed. He had a death sentence, Bar Kokhba. His head was later presented to the Emperor Hadrian in the Talmud in Sanhedrin 93b. However, the account is that Bar Kokhba, alias Bar Kosiba, alias Bar Kokhba, ruled for 2.5 years and proclaimed himself HaMashiach. The sages counted this, demonstrating that the prophet described the Mashiach as being capable of judging between two litigants by merely smelling which party is on the side of the halakha. Since Bar Kokhba lacked this ability, he still persisted in being declared and claiming that he was the Mashiach, the anointed one, the Christ. And the sages assassinated him. And this is the most troubling statement that I have read, which should not be so troubling to many others of the other religion, understanding that this was the same accusation that was made about the other descendant of the house of David who said he was also Mashiach. So here we have two such cases in which we find that in both cases we have the involvement of the sages involving themselves in the assassination of one of the so-called potential Mashiach of the time. Rabbeinu Meir Halevi and Abolafia explained that by making such a claim, Bar Kokhba was guilty of being a false prophet. Same thing with the other ones. And therefore incurred the death penalty. Same with the other ones. And based on this passage, Rabbeinu Avram ben David commented that Rambam is incorrect in asserting that he was killed by non-Jews. See Rabbi the Chazan Ovadiah's footnotes on page 3. It's very, very troubling, this whole entire story of the destruction of the temple and the leader that was massacred, that the Holocaust was even considered to be equal in magnitude to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, and destroyed on the grounds of the Beit HaMikdash and its surrounding were plowed over Turnasurufurus, the Roman governor of the land of Israel, fulfilling the prophecy of Jeremiah chapter 26 verse 18 and Micah chapter 3 verse 12, and Zion will be plowed over like a field. Now on the fast of the month, the 7th month, which is Tishri, 3rd Tishri, the anniversary of the assassination of Gedaliah ben Ahikam, the tragedy extinguished the last vestige of the independence of the nation of Israel in their land, and the last surviving communities were sent into exile. And here we have, in fact, the development of what caused the unwarranted hatred was actual killing of its leaders and of its potential possibilities of seeing the arisal of the house of David, the monarchy. Now, interesting, we find this in many of the different events leading to the destruction of the temple, to the ceasing of the offering of the Talmud offering, the ceasing of the offering in general, and the dispersion of the Jews to the four corners of the earth. The Torah Zahav suggested there's a special practice issue at stake here. According to Rabbeinu Yeruham, the fast of Gedalia is always postponed to another day if the circumcision takes place on that day. The baby's father, the moil, the sandek on that day. And this rule should be similar to the rule of the fast of Tisha B'Av if postponed to the Sabbath or to Sunday, as per the ruling of Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeah 559, I believe it is. And see also Halakha 28 according to Seder Olam. The Torah Zohav concludes by saying that it's very possible that the fast of Gedalia does not have status of a postponed fast, even according to Rabbeinu Yeruham. Since when our sages instituted the fast, it was instituted to be always on the 3rd of Tishrei. Again, as we mentioned, the Maharan, the Rishon LeZion, and many other poskim, that the fast of Gedalia is not considered to be postponed fast day, including Redbal on Tractate Ta'anit. Rav Yaakov of Emden, Rabbi Yehuda, in the Siddur Yaakov, Maharan ruled that in practice we must follow the stringent view, especially in light of the fact that Talmud implies that the 3rd of Tishrei is not postponed fast day. And they disagree with the Mate and other who ruled that they feel weak. The above three men may break their fast day, for example, in the opinions of those indicated. And so we have certain rules as we enter into this of the fast of Tisha B'Av, another fast that would apply, and we're going to continue this entire saga of the temple's destruction and how we can be able to learn from this so we can be able to rebuild our own houses, our own spiritual houses, and rectify the great harm and damage that was done, all because of Sinat Hinnom, my friends. See, Sinat Hinnom has the hatred, has the power to remove block by block everything that was constructed in the holy manner, and in one day see it all demolished. And unfortunately, we have a reminder, even here locally in South Florida, of a building that destroyed so many lives and still attempting to find those who were under the pillage of these incredible stones. And we need to learn the great harm that is caused by Rechilus, our tongue, our destruction and defamation against other leaders of the community. You may be able to agree to disagree, but don't go about your people as slanderers and talebearers and destroying the characters of good people because you feel envious and you feel hatred that is deep within you. And this is why I've posted many posts against Stop the Hate. And I'm specifically speaking to many of our leaders who have come out to slander others because they feel uncomfortable or because they feel envious or for whatever reason it may be. It's enough that we should stop so we would see the end of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, as we are repeating in our time as well. Every day our sages tell us that we do not see the building or the rebuilding of the temple would be indicative that that generation is also like the generation that destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. And my friends, we live in that generation again. We're repeating the same errors, the same mistakes, the same lashon hara, the same slander, the same strife, the same tearing apart of the Jewish people with the tongues and with the accusations of the fingers and with the statements that everyone's a heretic. My friends, it's time that we stop that and we begin to seek God with all of our hearts, with all of our minds, and most of all that we look for the Achdut. We begin to work towards Achdut, and thus through Achdut and unity we can begin to rebuild what our tongues and our mouths have destroyed. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. I have on this page a link where you can be able to contribute to help stop the hatred. We need to stop the hatred by many of these leaders who basically, almost like on a psychotic path to Gehenna, they are seeking to destroy the good reputation of good rabbis. And thus I call and I beg, if you support this, what we're saying, to be upon those who will sign a petition that we're constructing in order to sanction certain rabbis who are hate mongers among the communities. In this way, we can bring back that time in which all Torah was the way of peace and not of hatred, not of disunity, not of dissension. Help us bring back that which brings peace and love and unity among Kalal Yisrael. We may agree to disagree, but we do not have the right to destroy each other's character in front of the public or even in private, behind the scenes. We need to walk in complete wholesomeness before our God, before Hashem, and before the community. May God restore Kalal Yisrael to its greatness by restoring the people and the leaders of the people of God, the people of Israel. Shalom, shalom.